Greg, in Eddie's interview with Marty, we were talking. He was talking, not we. Look at that, we. They had a conversation about big data in real estate, and there's certain data that everybody has access to, but for the small investor that doesn't necessarily have institutional grade data, we need to find lifts in our own way for the markets that we're in. Let's start off talking about the automated valuation concept. What do you mean by automated valuation? I know there are a couple bullet points here. Automated valuation, is this like a Zillow thing? I go there, punch in my address, and spits out a number?
Yeah, they made it famous. Sure, they made it famous. The thing about data today in real estate is that literally there was so little before, because the industry that sells houses was very secretive with the data. Zillow, actually, if you recall back in, I guess, 2002 when they first showed up, right around there, their opening line was find out what your house is worth, right? You could find out what was for sale on other real estate websites, and you could on Zillow too, but they opened up with what is my house worth? And they ticked off a lot of people in the real estate business because they created an automated valuation model. It's called an AVM, automated valuation model. And what it does, it takes comparable sales of houses like it, and it says, okay, based upon the other sales in the area, your house is worth X, right? And they were notoriously wrong. The industry lambasted them, the industry of home sellers, realtors, etc., lambasted Zillow for being wrong, but the public loved it because the public said, hey, I'd rather you be off than you require me to go sit in an office to get the information. In other words, realtors were protecting the information on what had sold, so homeowners kind of had an idea what the house was worth, but not really. And Zillow has dialed it in tighter and tighter and tighter. And then there's Atom Data Solutions, and there's House Canary. There's a series of businesses now that have really perfected the idea of saying you give them an address, they give you a value, and they're within a few percentage points of being right. Okay, so that's where it begins. Is what's everything worth, and that's become ubiquitous. Every day, armchair quarterbacks in real estate know what the houses in the neighborhood are worth based upon the voyeur aspect of watching Zillow and sites like it to find out what the houses are worth. But now we've got something else. Now we've got automated rental valuation. You never knew what a house would rent for by looking it up someplace online until just recently it's gotten accurate. The reason for that is there was no main source of rental data in the country that could be tapped into. So for example, as a contrast, this is kind of inside baseball, but hopefully your audience thinks it's interesting.
Yeah.
Because every house that sells, a deed gets recorded, the municipality, the public record knows what that house was purchased for. Okay, and because every house that's sold from realtors in the MLS, the obligation of the realtor is to put the house price that it's sold for into the MLS database. Those two databases, the public record and the MLS, converge to create the automated valuation. But you don't have to record a lease. So when you rent out your house for $1,000 a month, you don't go file that with the county clerk. Nobody knows that, just you and your tenant. So that whole database of housing public record does not touch rentals. And the MLSs do a really lousy job of rentals. They don't really care about rentals so much. And so that database is almost useless. And it's taken a long time for rental EVMs to get to the point where you could say, that address, what's it worth? $140,000. What would it rent for? $1,125 a month, and have both of those answers be right. Okay. And now they are. And with those two numbers, you can calculate what the gross yield is on the property. All right. And then if you know what it costs to operate a property, which is data driven, which we have on OwnAmerica.com, you know what your net yield is. And of course, gross yield is what your profit is before you pay your expenses, and net yield is what you actually put in your pocket. And so that data exists, and it isn't just for the big guys. In fact, us and some other players in the industry, we built these data sets and we learned how to master these data sets to help the biggest investors from Wall Street to do what they've been doing for the last 10 years, which is building massive portfolios. But our hearts have been with the entrepreneur. So we took that data that now we already owned, and we spun it around and said, hey, it's free. All right. So you can analyze properties on our website and others, OwnAmerica.com, Roofstock.com. There are places you can go where you can analyze properties for sale and get the raw financial data, value, rent, expenses, yield, and it's right in front of you and it's free. And that's the starting point.
So that's the starting point. How do I take it further, right? Like if I'm looking then for natural lift, where do I go? How do I hunt for this data? What do I have to do? What do I have to move? What do I have to sift through?
Right. That's the best part. This is the part that I specialize in. in terms of having intuition, right? One of
That's
my
right.
favorite thing about this asset class is the common sense aspect of it, right? And so remember that when you're talking about residential real estate, you're talking about shelter over families. So if you can understand why people live in a place they live, why other people are moving to that place, are those circumstances going to continue? All right, you can give me any market in the country. We're going to Atlanta for the Think Realty event in a couple of weeks. I'll use that as an example. The migration patterns going down to Atlanta, down to the southeast. So you start with the whole southeast, like 7 states, right? They're
Yep, that's
pulling
right.
population from the northeast and the upper Midwest like a vacuum, right? Then you get to Atlanta. Atlanta is like a sun in its own solar system. It has the highest population of major metro in the southeast. And so it is just on its way. It's growing and growing and growing. So much so you can't get from point A to point B without sitting in traffic. But traffic is an indicator of population density. All right, literally the kind of data, like when I sit in traffic, everybody else is grumbling and cursing. I'm laughing all the way to the bank because every one of those people need to live in a house. I own houses in the market. I feel good about population density. But when you start looking at, there are sources, you go do a search, population trends. The US Census Bureau puts up charts and graphs for free where you can see where the population is going, where it's coming from, and how steeply that curve is growing. Because when you see population growth, you see housing demand. You then say, okay, so why are they moving there? Quality of life, cost of living, job growth. All those trends are the kind of things that you don't have to be, you don't have to pay for any of the data. And you could just kind of, if you're strong on common sense, and I found this, Ahbi, you probably could validate this. One of the things that is universally true about the people that I meet that are drawn to housing, I like to call them housing junkies, right? Real estate junkies, people that they dream about being wealthy with real estate. They are really heavy on the common sense, right? They understand the asset class is housing in America. They understand housing in America is in demand. And then you can dial it in tighter and tighter and tighter to find a market that's a winner. And then you go extra. You talk about extra lift. The idea is what's going to lift all boats in this harbor, right? What are the things that are going to create lift? And that's where the real creativity can come in. And I'll give you an example of, this is the thing that I made my first reputation points on back at the end of the housing crisis. We launched this business and we helped Wall Street funds accumulate houses, but we didn't sell them foreclosures. I wasn't into that. I wasn't into dealing with the houses that had been taken from people who got kicked out. They didn't pay the loan. I understand they can't stay if they don't pay the loan. But I was thinking about them. And my first, and I'm not such a wonderful guy, just my first instinct was, I am a wonderful guy, but I'm not.
I mean,
the
I was
first
going to say,
instinct was,
that's a softball, right? I think you're a great guy, Greg.
well, thank you. We can end on that. No, I'm just kidding. The idea is there's going to be an increase in rental demand. I can picture a family who overshot on the house they bought. Okay, I can picture they have this foreclosure, they have to get out from under it, and the very next thing they're concerned about is making sure their kids stay in the same school district. So the data that we compiled was by school district. Where are the places where there are 4 or 5 foreclosures or pre-foreclosures, houses that will soon be foreclosed on? Where are there 4 or 5 of them for every one available rental? Because I know those families are going to want to stay in the school district, and so we bought any house we could. They didn't have to be cheap. We paid market value because we knew there'd be a tenant demanding that house.
That's right. We need another segment devoted specifically to this, right? Like, it's not enough only to look at big data. We have to find our own lift. And I appreciate the insights that you have into that because it works. You just got to put a little bit of work into it.